So I think the Northern Ireland Protocol bill is not helpful. We think it's not lawful. It's illegal in terms of the respect of an international treaty. We accepted to talk even if the bill goes through Parliament. But one needs to be very clear: if ever the bill becomes law, the situation changed considerably.
The British-Irish Council Summit continues as well. Michael Gove is there, and high on the agenda is finding a way to break the deadlock over the Northern Ireland Protocol, which leads me very neatly towards my next guest, who's just joined me in the studio, the outgoing EU ambassador to the UK, Joao Vale de Almeida. Good morning.
Good morning, Matt.
Nice to have you with us. Explain, first of all, your role as the EU ambassador to the UK.
Well, it was a role without a script, without a manual, without a user's guide.
To start with, Britain even refused to recognise you.
Yeah, there were some issues there. I knew it will end up at the right place, but it was a first ever. I mean, after Brexit, after having lived together for almost half a century, we split, and someone had to represent the EU here. I was very honoured with it. But again, it was without script, so we had to sort of invent the position and the role.
So let's talk a bit about the role. I mean, it feels like we are on the possible, I mean, we've been here before, the cusp of a breakthrough, trying to iron out the problems with the Northern Ireland Protocol. Last night, Rishi Sunak said he was confident that with goodwill and pragmatism, a breakthrough can be found. We've heard all this before. How does it compare to before? Do you think we might actually be reaching the point where, blimey, we can stop talking about the Northern Ireland Protocol?
Well, I like to say that I'm living on a high tone, let's put it this way, that I live behind the prospect of positive news. I think it's like, if you have a plane on a tarmac ready to take off, I think the engines are warming up. I hope it will take off very soon. I think the conditions are better today for that. I'm encouraged by what I hear from the Prime Minister, from the Foreign Secretary. We are holding technical talks. I hope that very soon we can move step up and try to address the core issues that need to be solved.
Is it the change of personnel at the top which is allowed us to get to the position where you can be more optimistic? Was it that Liz Truss and before it Boris Johnson, were they the roadblocks to trying to find a way through this?
Now, I don't want to personalise too much and certainly not interfere into British politics. What I see is a change of tone, a change of mood music, if you want. I think we still miss the lyrics of the new British song on particularly the Northern Ireland Protocol. But I'm encouraged by what I see and hear. I think there are other aspects, right? I mean, and listening to you summarizing this morning news, I mean, we have economic troubles in all our countries. We have security issues in our neighborhood. We have common adversaries. We have common values. And talking about climate change, Sharm el-Sheikh, another example, but also inspired by the armistice. I think all that points in the direction of the need for a strong cooperation between the EU and the UK. We have Brexit, we respect Brexit, but we believe that in spite of Brexit, provided we restore trust among our countries and our leaders, we can move forward.
You talk about the economic impact. Is it, for a long time it's been argued that it was going to adversely affect the British economy. Is it also the case that this stalemate, the ongoing protracted impasse between Britain and the EU, is that affecting EU countries and their economies? And is that helping to bring the EU to the table and be more willing to make changes?
I mean, who wants a trade war in the middle of a war in Europe? We are confronted with this unlawful, unprovoked war invasion by Putin in the middle of an economic difficulties, an energy security crisis, global challenges like climate change. I think that's the last thing any of us would want. I mean, if need be, of course, we need to take action if the UK does not change a position. But I think there is scope here for us to try to find a landing zone, talking about planes, a landing zone that we recognize as a common one where we can move forward. But I think there is, you know what we think about Brexit, right? I personally think it was a lose-lose operation, but I fully respect the decision of the British voters. What we need is to be very pragmatic and realistic, but start by respecting what we have agreed. And that's where we need to do something about it, because the levels of trust are very low. Let's restore trust. Once we restore trust, once we sort out the Northern Ireland Protocol implementation difficulties that we have, I think we have a good a good flight ahead of us.
Quite often when people say we need to be pragmatic, what they mean is the other side needs to come around to my way of thinking. You said the UK needs to change. Does the EU need to change and shift its position as well?
We have shown flexibility, and I've been saying, and I repeat here this morning, our offer is not yet fully exhausted. So there is room within what we put forward in the last few months as in a flexible, pragmatic way to address some of the difficulties that we have encountered in implementing the agreement. But let me be clear about one point. There will always have to be a degree of checks at the border, because we need to protect 500 million people internal market in order to continue to allow Northern Ireland to have access to both markets. I mean, Northern Ireland is the only territory in the world from which you can have access to both the GB market, the UK market, and the biggest internal market in the world, which is the EU's one. So this brings huge opportunities for Northern Ireland, provided that we have a happy, comfortable, with a degree of control of the border between GB and Northern Ireland.
But you think those checks, the checks between GB and Northern Ireland, there will have to remain checks?
There will have to be some degree of checks. Now, how much? We are ready to go for a minimum level. Some of them would not even be visible, will not even have an impact on people's lives, provided we have the degree of assurance that everything that we get from the British side is enough for us to assess the risk and to limit the risk at the end of the day. So I think if there is goodwill, which I know there is, and I have no reasons to doubt the British government on that front, I think in the coming weeks, coming months, with a certain degree of urgency, we can find a way out.
Does proceeding with the Northern Ireland Protocol bill, the one is essentially the UK side tries to blow up the agreement that you'd settled on, does continuing with that, it's just cleared the House of Lords, is that a sign of goodwill, or would you like to see Rishi Sunak put that in the bin?
I think it's an understatement to say that this is not helpful. I mean, if you are talking as we are here today, and we try to find an agreement, and you tell me, unless you agree on my position, I will not respect what we had agreed previously. This is not a good basis to start a conversation. So I think the Northern Ireland Protocol bill is not helpful. We think it's not lawful. It's illegal in terms of the respect of an international treaty. We accepted to talk even if the bill goes through Parliament, but one needs to be very clear. If ever the bill becomes law, the situation changes considerably.
So when Rishi Sunak talks about goodwill and pragmatism, is that essentially just warm words to you while the Northern Ireland Protocol bill is still there?
Well, the bill is not yet approved.
Yeah.
The government tells us that they are not accelerating the procedures over there. I think we should focus on the talks. We should focus on the positive side of things, on what we can do together. That's why we need a sense of urgency, because the bill is still going in Parliament. So my call on, and my hope, frankly, is that the government will instruct their negotiators to speed up the process, that we can move to a more substantial phase of the talks, and you can eventually, in the coming weeks and months, find a common solution. Unilateral action, either through grace periods or, even worse, by putting a bill in Parliament that disapplies the protocol, is not the way forward.
Do you feel like you can trust Rishi Sunak more than Liz Truss and before that Boris Johnson?
Well, we deal with the prime ministers that the British people and the British parliamentarians decide to appoint. And we have had 3 in my time here. I've had a few chancellors as well, and a few foreign secretaries. We deal with them, of course, with all the respect. And our basic line is to trust what we hear. We need to test that trust with results.
Yeah.
So what I'm hoping, and I'm sure this government will do, is to show by results that they are, frankly and sincerely engaged.
Next May, we've got the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement. Do you think a deal can be done by then?
I hope it will be done way before that.
Way before that. And just finally, as you prepare to leave the UK, is there anything you'll miss?
I miss the Premier League. I miss the tea, as I said in another interview. But I also miss the Prime Minister questions.
Yeah.
I miss the beautiful countryside. I miss London. I miss tough journalists like you, but nice people. So there's a lot of things I will miss. But I'll be back in after September as a visiting fellow in Cambridge. So hope to see you all again.
Anything you won't miss? Anything you've really not? What do you like least about being in the UK?
I don't like your rain. I'm not fond of cricket, but the rest is fine. The rest is fine. The
Rain
rest
in
is
cricket,
fine.
we can't do much about that. It does sometimes rain in Europe as well.
Yeah,
The rest
a
of
lot,
the- yeah,
a lot.
exactly. It's really good to see you. Thank you so much
Nice
for joining
seeing you,
us.
nice seeing you,
Joao
Matt.
Vale de Almeida, there, the outgoing EU ambassador to the UK. Thanks so much for joining us.